when it comes to German vehicles, I don't like installing aftermarket parts in general, whether it's mechanical parts or electronic and electrical parts. So I'm gonna recommend replacing these cats. And remember, we had a PO 420 in the engine computer, so these cats need to be replaced. So now what we have to do is let's check the wiring of the sensor. Okay, so this is gonna be bank 1. This is the catalytic converter for bank 1, and then that one over there is gonna be the cat for bank 2. So as I'm looking back here, it looks like I'm trying to find the wire of that sensor over there. Let me see if I can reach it. Yeah, it's this one. So this is the wire for it. So this over here is the wiring of the second O2 sensor on that catalytic converter. So I'm gonna grab, let's go to our service info and look up the position of these catalytic converters. So this is a 2014 Audi Q7. Okay, so I'm gonna turn off the engine. We don't have to keep the engine running. So at this point, I am going to, actually, before I turn off the engine, let me get to, we're just gonna check, we're gonna check these O2 sensors, okay? While we're here, so we're gonna pop this out. Okay, so this is, oh, what is that? It looks like man, it looks like someone ran a wire. This over here, like this wire. So I don't know if you can see it. They cut this wire right there. Do you see that? So that's the original wire that they cut, and then they ran this wire. I don't know why they cut it. Maybe it's open somewhere. We need to figure that out. So yeah, that's it. That's the problem. We gotta chase some wires. Now, I'm not gonna film the process of chasing down that wire, although you guys, I know you guys might wanna see that. I'm sure it's fun to do, but I'm gonna do that off camera. I need to figure out why they ran another wire. I'm gonna have to chase it down. We have to trace it down all the way to the engine computer, and then we'll see what we're gonna find. So I'm gonna do that off camera. I will go around and find that wire. After I do that, I'll bring you guys back up once I open up the harness. I don't know if we have to open the entire wiring harness. I don't wanna do that. So I'm gonna try to figure out what's gonna be the non-intrusive way of doing this. So I'm curious to know where that wire goes. We might have to look at the wiring diagram to figure that out. So I will do my research, I'll chase down the wire off camera, and then I'll bring you guys back up after I find something. All right, guys, before I trace down the wire that was tapped into the signal wire of the second O2 sensor wiring harness on the vehicle side, on the bank 2, so I don't have to have the vehicle on the lift to chase down this wire. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the unplug it test. So I'm gonna disconnect the sensor from the wiring harness, and then we're gonna turn the key on. We're gonna connect our back probing tools to that black wire on the sensor connector to see if we have voltage there, and then we're gonna compare the voltages from both connectors. So I'm gonna go in the vehicle and turn the key on. So key is on right now. So if Matt can show you guys what I'm looking at over here. So this is the wire that was run by the guys at the dealership, I guess. If we follow this wire, if you follow it, it comes around here, and then it comes up. Let's see. It looks like the wire goes up here, and then it goes, Matt, I hope you can see there. it goes somewhere down there. So this is the wire that they ran. Okay, so if we follow this wire, let's follow it over here. It comes around below this tube, and then up here, and then over here, and right there. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna disconnect this electrical connector, okay? I'm gonna back probe the harness side, okay? Let's back probe this side, okay? Now I'm gonna do the same thing on the other sensor, and again, we're just testing the sensors after the cat, okay? So this is, I hope this is not confusing to you guys. So we're gonna back probe this guy. This one over here. There's no room, so I hope you can see that right there. Okay, so I'm back probing that wire, and now I'm going to disconnect this electrical connector. Okay, so this wire is the black wire on the sensor. So we're comparing what we have on bank 1 and bank 2. Okay, so let's see what we're gonna find on the lab scope screen, because right now with the key on, if the engine computer is sending a bias voltage on that signal wire to the sensors, to the O2 sensors on both banks, we should have the same voltage there. And I want to see if that bias voltage is getting to the sensors. So we're going to go to our lab scope. We're going to turn on the first 2 traces. We should have the same voltage on both traces. Okay, let's refresh this. Actually, what's interesting is that we have the same voltage there. So yellow trace is 0.452 volts, and then green trace is 0.458 volt. So that's good. It looks like the circuit from the engine computer all the way to the sensor is good. We might have to swap these sensors around and see what happens. I'm gonna turn the key off. Let's turn off the key to see if we're gonna lose this voltage on the lab scope screen. So let me turn the key off. So based on what I see, the wiring is good. Okay, so key is off. It's probably gonna time out. We still have our 0.4 volt on this wire. Let's wait a little bit. It's probably gonna time out. Yeah, right there. It's just timed out, so it went down to 0. So that's good. I mean, based on what I see, the wiring is good. Although they ran another wire, maybe that wire was open, but the wiring is good. Now, we could have a defective sensor also, although this came from the dealer, and there's no way you can mismatch these connectors because they are color coded. Interesting. Let me see if I can connect this one over here. I don't know if it's gonna work. No, it's not gonna fit. Okay, so do we have a sensor problem? I mean, we can bypass these wires and see what happens. Because, guys, what I'm trying to figure out at this point is this a sensor issue or a circuit issue? So based on what I see over here, our circuit is fine. So here's what I'm gonna do. Let's move to the wire next to it. So on this brown connector, let's move next to this one here. I wanna see what voltage we're gonna have there. So these first 2 are the wire for the sensor heater, and then these two will be the wire for the sensor ground and sensor signal. So we're gonna do the same thing on this connector. I hope you guys can see this. This wiring is a little shorter here. Let me back probe this second one. Yeah, okay. Okay, so let's refresh this. We have 0, 0 right now. I'm gonna turn the key on. Oh, I don't wanna start the engine. Just key on the dash. Let's see what we got. So key is on. Our voltage on the other wire of the sensor, so this is the ground wire. We have 0.006 volt on the green trace, and then 0.003 volt on the yellow trace. So according to this, the wiring is fine. I mean, we did the unplug it test. The wiring is fine. So wiring is fine. And I can't swap these sensors around because they are not the same. I could have swapped them. Yeah, these sensors, the connectors are not the same. You know, I'm kind of tempted to do that though. It's not gonna fit. This one is a little, oh, maybe. Oh, it's gonna work. So maybe let's put this one over here and see what kind of voltage we're gonna have. Yeah, so actually, I'm gonna move this one back. Okay, so guys, I hope this is not confusing. The one that was working fine is the one on bank 1. So bank 1 sensor 2 was fine. It was bank 2 sensor 2 that was giving us issues. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get the electrical connector of the O2 sensor on bank 2. So bank 2 sensor 2, I will connect that connector to the connector on the vehicle side of bank 1 sensor 2. So the engine computer will start seeing the signal coming from the sensor on bank 2. So I'm going to move this over here because this is our suspect wire. So let's move this over here. And remember before, this was not moving. So we're gonna connect to this connector here. So we're breaking the rules. Oh, right there. So it just went in. Okay. So remember before this one, the signal on this wire was flat. This was flat. So we're just gonna watch that for now and we can leave. Okay, this is not gonna fit because there's a little tab over here. We're gonna leave this one unplugged. Okay, let's leave that one unplugged. So we're gonna focus, it's the green trace. So actually right now, on the green trace, we are reading 0.455 millivolt. So I'm going to turn off the first channel. We're just gonna look at the second channel on the screen. I'm gonna start the engine. So if this starts oscillating when the engine is running, this will tell us that the issue is the sensor. Now, since that other sensor is disconnected, I don't know if it's gonna go into closed loop, but let's see. Let me start the engine. So engine is running. Okay, so this one is not oscillating right now. Let me drop the voltage down. Let's put more time across the screen. So we're just focusing on that black wire on the sensor connector. Because if this doesn't change, if it doesn't oscillate, yeah, so if it doesn't change, then the issue would be a defective catalytic converter then. Because we know that sensor is good. I feel tempted to shave this, because if I shave this little tab over here, I can cut this little tab, and then I should be able to plug it over here. Yeah, so we have the same thing. There's a flat line there. You know, very odd. Let me disconnect this. Let's disconnect this guy. Let's reconnect this over here. And then let's disconnect. Let me turn on our second channel. Let's reconnect this guy. So we have the same voltage on both of them. Okay, so let me move this around. Let me move this up here. Yeah, so as you can see on the green trace, we're moving between 0, -0. So this is, why is it showing me a minus number here? That's odd. Yeah, we should have read the same number. So I'm doing the same test, but this time I'm connected on the harness side because I was trying to see if we have a connection issue. So I'm basically back probing the gray wire. Yeah, so yellow is definitely, we have ground on the yellow, but the second one over here, this is a problem. We're stuck at 0.4 volt on the green trace. Let me move this back here. Same thing. Very interesting. Well, what's wrong, guys? How are we gonna fix this? I mean, our signal wire looks fine to me. We have 0.4 volts coming to the sensors, so our wiring is good. Our bias voltage is good. So actually, let me turn off the engine. Let's clear the codes, because maybe that's not. Let me turn the key on. Let's clear the codes and see what happens. Oh, let me get the scan tool connected. This is odd. I'm trying to figure out, because this is very odd. I'm trying to figure out if the issue is the sensor or the wire. Now, based on the test that I see there, although there ran another wire there, but the wiring is fine, because our bias voltage from the engine computer to the sensor is getting there. But when we swap the sensors around, nothing changes, which is odd, because if the issue was the sensor, after we swapped the connectors, it should have worked. So maybe it's not as easy as a connector issue or a wiring issue. So it's very odd, though. Very odd. I mean, it's just 4 wires. Okay, let's go to our scan tool. Actually, I don't know if I mentioned this already. I was wrong when I first introduced the vehicle. This is a 2010. So right there. It's not a 2014. I think that's what I said earlier. I was wrong. It's a 2010. So let's go into the engine computer. Let's see the codes that we have. We're gonna have a bunch of codes because I was doing the test with the connectors unplugged. Okay, I'm gonna clear all these codes. Let's read the codes again. So I believe that's why they replaced the engine computer, because there's a code that says O2 sensor bank 2 sensor 2 no activity, because we have that flight line. We have that flight line on the scope. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is, let's go back to data. We're gonna look at our O2 sensor data PIDs, and then I will also bring our lab scope screen over here. No, actually, let's go on the generic side. Let's look at it from the generic side of the scan tool. It's going to be easy to see. Is it the sensor? Is it the wiring? I don't think it's the wire. That's why we test, guys. We test, we don't guess. So let's customize this list. I'm going to grab our trim, our fuel system, O2 sensor bank 2. I'm just going to focus on the second O2 sensors, bank 2 sensor 2 and bank 1 sensor 2. These are the only PIDs that I want to look at. We're going to graph this one, and we're going to graph this guy also. Okay, so now let's go to our guided component test. Let's just pick any vehicle. Okay, this is how we're gonna bring up. Okay, scope is already running. Let's turn this off. Scanner. Okay, we have our bias voltage there. Now we're gonna bring up our lab scope. So here it is. Okay, we do have our bias voltages there. So we have the same thing on the scope and the same thing on the scan tool. So now I'm gonna start the engine. Let's see. Okay, so as you can hear, the engine is running. Okay, we are still in open loop. This is the test that we did earlier, but I wanna look at my scan data and the lab scope data at the same time to see what's going on. Because, I mean, what I was expecting was, since they ran this wire, maybe we were not gonna have the 0.4 volt at the connector of the sensor. We do have that, so that tells me that our wiring is good. So we're still in open loop right now. Let me lower the lab scope here. Yeah, so we're still in open loop. Okay, we went into closed loop. This is odd. Now both of our sensors are starting to mirror each other. Did we accidentally fix this? Interesting. I mean, Matt is laughing at me. I mean, we're both in closed loop. Remember before, I don't know if you guys saw that, it said closed loop fault. Now it's showing closed loop on both banks and our values look similar on both banks. Maybe the issue was just a connection problem. Let me rev up the engine a couple of times. Let's see. That's odd. Check engine light is off right now because we cleared the codes. We might have to drive this again, Matt. I mean, here at idle, our numbers look fine. Okay, you know what? Let me grab my test leads. Let's get those long test leads, and then we're gonna take this for a spin. I'm gonna get that set up. Okay, so basically I have longer test leads than these ones. I'm gonna connect to the signal wire of the O2 sensor after the CAT on bank 1 and bank 2. And then we're gonna go on a test drive. We're gonna watch the voltages on the scan tool and on the lab scope to see what happens. So I'm gonna get that connected and then we'll go for a spin. Before we go on a test drive, I'm gonna show you my connections. So Matt, if you can show this one. So green trace is connected to the signal wire of the O2 sensor on bank 1. So bank 1 sensor 2. And then yellow is connected to the signal wire of the O2 sensor on bank 2. So bank 2 sensor 2. So now let's go on a test drive and see what we're gonna find. Okay, so let's bring up our lab scope here. Okay, so it looks like our green trace is bank 1 sensor 2, and then as you can see, this one is mirroring. It's mirroring the graph, and then the yellow trace is bank 2 sensor 2. This is the one that has a problem. Yeah, it's starting to switch right now. I guess it had to get hot enough. Now that it's hot, yeah, I mean, you guys can see this. So this is a sensor problem. this sensor is not switching. We don't even have to go for a test drive, to be honest, because it's switching already. Okay, as you can see, the green trace is matching the graph on bank 1. So bank 1 sensor 2 is good. Okay, so when the sensor is fairly cold, we have that bias voltage that comes from the ECM, which is 0.4 volt. And then when the sensor gets hot, when it starts working, then it starts oscillating. I mean, you can see it going up and down. Now, since it's going up and down, this is the second O2 sensor. This means the catalytic converter is bad. Okay, so we have two issues here. We have a sensor issue, and we also have a catalytic converter problem, because so the sensor on bank, let me see, actually, let me do my brake pedal trick. I'm gonna pump the brakes. Let me see if I can drive these O2 sensors lean. So I'm pumping the brakes right now. Matt, I don't know if you can see if you can show my foot there. I'm pumping the brakes. You guys probably won't be able to see. Our O2 sensors should go lean right now. So look at what we have on bank 1 sensor 2. So bank 1 sensor 2 is showing 0.7. It's going between, now it's going up. I'm gonna let off. We should go reach right now. So right there. So bank 1 sensor 2 is showing us 0.7 volts, so which is a reach signal. That's good. We have the same thing over here on the lab scope. Look at the green trace, and then yellow trace is stuck at 0.4 volt, no matter what we do. Yeah, bad sensor and potentially bad catalytic converter. So we don't have to go on a test drive, Matt. Let's drive back in the shop. This is what I wanted to check, because at first I was just leaning towards the wiring, but the wiring is not the issue, okay? Yeah, I'm gonna have to replace this sensor. We have to get another sensor, yeah. I mean, green trace, so what we have on the lab scope is actually the signal at the sensor, okay? So green trace is matching what we have on bank 1. And also, yellow trace is matching what we have on bank 2. So flat line, we have 0.4 volt there. So bad sensor, and since we also had a catalytic converter code, and you can see how the catalytic converter on bank 1 is oscillating up and down. So this is the data. That's the signal coming from the sensor after the cat. So the signal from the sensor after the cat should be pretty flat. It should be pretty steady between 0.4 and 0.6. So which should be pretty, I mean, it can go down a little bit, the signal coming from the second O2 sensor, but it should be pretty flat, because the catalytic converter stores oxygen when the engine is running, so that it can use that oxygen to break down harmful gases like hydrocarbon and NOx and so on. So I'm gonna turn off the engine. Here's what I'm gonna do. We might have to lose our data. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna call the customer. I'm gonna recommend a sensor replacement. Let's replace the sensor on bank 2. So bank 2, sensor 2, we gotta change that. Let's get an OEM oxygen sensor. We know the bias voltage is getting to the sensor connector, so that tells us the sensor wiring is good. And then I'm also gonna recommend replacing these catalytic converters. I'm gonna recommend OEM catalytic converters. I will call Audi and get an estimate ready. I'll send it to the customer, and then we'll see what he says. So 2 issues: bad O2 sensor, sensor 2 on bank 2, and then bad catalytic converters. I'll get the estimate. I'll talk to the customer. Actually, let me call the customer. Let's see if he's gonna pick up right now. I can call him and tell him what we found. So let me go grab my phone, and then we're gonna call the customer.
Please leave your message for...
All right, so he's not picking up. So I'm gonna have to, I'm sure he's gonna call up, and then whenever he calls back, I mean, we'll talk to him. So we won't show you my conversation with him. I wanted to put this on camera, but you know, I won't be able to do that because I don't know when he's gonna call, and we might be filming another vehicle while he calls. So we're gonna leave this right over here. I don't know how long this video is gonna be, and then we'll bring you guys back up when we get the parts. So we're gonna replace the cats, and we're gonna replace the second O2 sensor on bank 2. So we're gonna leave this right over here. I hope you liked the video. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe to the channel. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. Be on the lookout for part 2. I'm sure we'll most likely make part 2 on this vehicle. Cameraman Matt, thanks for being here. See you guys next time. All right, guys, it is the next day. I'm going to give you an update on this Audi. So I sent the estimate to the customer. The customer saw an estimate. I recommended replacing the O2 sensor, the second O2 sensor after the cat, the one that wasn't working. And I told the customer, since the catalytic converters were aftermarket catalytic converters, I also recommended replacing them. So we were gonna get new catalytic converters from the Audi dealership and new oxygen sensor and one new oxygen sensor. But the customer told me that based on how much money he spent at the dealership, he spent over $4,000. You guys saw the invoices. He told me that right now he doesn't have enough money to put into the vehicle. So since he knows the problem, he's gonna pick up the vehicle, and when he's ready, he will bring it back so that we can replace the catalytic converters and the oxygen sensor. So he's gonna live with the issue right now. Eventually, he will come back. So we're gonna leave this right over here. We did not get the job. The customer knows what's wrong. I told him, if you want, I mean, you can install other aftermarket catalytic converters on the vehicle, but I don't do that because aftermarket catalytic converters don't usually work. I mean, especially when it comes to European vehicles, I always like to install OEM parts. So we went with OEM parts. He said he's not gonna do that now. He will do it in the future. So I wanted to give you guys an update about this. So hopefully in the future, we will see this Audi here again in our shop. But if not, we're gonna thank the owner for bringing business to us, and we're gonna move on to the next vehicle. So, cameraman Matt, thank you for being here. Actually, the owner is here. He's here to pick up the vehicle, so we're gonna drive the vehicle around so he can pick it up. Thanks everybody. See you guys next time.